What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. We're really sorry about last week. We had technical difficulties, but we got that all ironed out and fixed. I want to, before we start, Steve, just draw some attention to that chyron on the bottom. How fun. Yeah. It's new. It's pretty. And I think that was Steven's favorite one. So he won the votes. He swayed the vote over. So,
it's what we do. It's what we do.
Yeah. For sure. But we are chock full of good stories for the week for you. I think you guys are going to very much enjoy them. And I think before we get into the stories, though, we should start talking about what's going on. Like how have you been, Steven? It's been 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
What's going on?
It's been a crazy minute. Did some traveling last weekend. You and I both took a trip down south to celebrate 21st birthday of one of our best friends, Amber.
Great time,
which was always a special time. And I love that we are like at that age where we can still celebrate 20, like we're beyond 21, but we're like freshly beyond 21, so we remember how exciting it was. And like just to be able to go out with your friends now, especially because both of us turned 21 right during when the pandemic was happening.
And so about to start.
Yeah, and we were the first two that were 21, so it was iffy because we couldn't really celebrate the way we wanted to.
Right.
So now we get to share that experience with our friends who are, a step behind us, and I think that's a super special thing. So it was awesome doing that. News-wise, I mean, things have been pretty stagnant, some stories that we touched on haven't really developed, and it feels like, but this is always the case. And you and I know this.
This is the boring time, yeah.
Yeah, everybody says September is the least newsworthy month. That's the thing, because amps up in the summer, kind of breaks down, gets ready for that fall midterm election fallout, whatever's going to happen. Yeah. So
August, September is always a super slow time. The dog days of summer into September just kind of suck. But we do have some pretty good stories, I think, overall.
Now,
what's up?
I do want to say, I think it is important to know where you're broadcasting from.
Yeah, I'm broadcasting from WXVU, which is the Villanova University radio station's podcasting studio. So thank you for letting me use this. It's a pretty exciting time here to be starting back up. It's like I'm a freshman in college again, getting to know a new station, getting to know some new people. So
it's crazy. Now, before I know we want to start, but how has law school been?
Law school has been good. It's hard. I'm not gonna lie. I know I'm breaking news here. Breaking news. Get the chyron, Steven. Law school's hard. No, it's hard in a tricky way. Time management I'm good at time management. I do well at time management, but I've never read this much before for school. I was always the kind of person that could get by kind of not doing the reading, which I don't suggest for you, but that's not how this works anymore. You have to do the reading. So that's an adjustment. It's a lot of reading. It's complex reading. Some classes are harder than others, obviously, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm enjoying the intellectual stimulation and the getting back to being in school and just meeting new people. People are from all over the world, all over the country. So that's also fun too. So many different perspectives, life experience, So it's good. It's a good time.
Now, I know this isn't any topic, we don't have to go too crazy here, but I do want to ask a question about it because it's relevant.
Sure.
A lot of Gen Z, like our age of individuals, slightly younger, are heading back to school, right? So they're getting in the swing of things. They're getting in the groove. Law school is a little bit different because this is secondary education, right? So you're dealing with a population of people who could be any age, come from any profession, right? How do you see yourself as a 23-year-old in this class of individuals? How does it feel? Are you in the middle of the pack? Are you a youngin in the class?
No, I'm definitely right in the middle, right? So it's funny. There's a group of people that have work experience, and then there's a group of people that have had years and years of work experience, then a couple of years, and then there's the few that are right out of undergrad, no break at all, and then there's like gap years, right? So I didn't really have a gap year per se because I did the extra semester at Montclair because of my master's program. So I only had 6 months, but people coming in with a gap maybe 1 to 3 years if they don't have say 10 years of work experience, right? Or you're coming straight out of undergrad. So I'm probably right in that middle sweet spot, which is pretty good too because you have experience on both ends.
Yeah. I think this will be like a fun little interesting, almost like a little segment on the show where just like, how is Gen Z doing in law school? And by
Yeah,
Gen
right.
Z, we mean AJ.
Right. How's AJ doing in law school? No, it's interesting. It's fun. I love the dynamic of the classes, which are very conversation based, which is kind of where I thrive, which is nice.
Yep.
And yeah, well, I mean, I'll keep telling you how it goes. We haven't reached any of the hard milestones of finals and midterms, and
No, not
so
yet.
we'll see how I'm doing then. I'll be coming onto the show. There'll be like 300 bags under my eyes. Like I didn't go to bed till 4 o'clock in the morning last night, but we'll see.
I'll hear energy drinks ruffling in your
Exactly.
backpack.
Exactly. I have water next to me right now, but in a few weeks that'll be like two monsters and a coffee.
Yep. No, I'm
Um,
excited. I'm excited
yes.
for you, and I love that I get to reap the benefit of you going first. You know what I mean?
Right, right. So now you'll have all of the in working details and any textbooks that we might share in common. You
Yeah.
get that benefit too.
No, that's perfect.
But
That's a great tip.
it's good.
That's a great tip for this generation is let one of your friends do it first. See how they like it.
Right. No, it's definitely worth doing if you are capable of it, and I think obviously I think Steven is. I think he'll do great there. But Steven, you're prepping for your bodybuilding show, so how's that going? How's your
That's
meals a day or whatever you have to eat?
Yeah, we're 6 meals a day. I just actually so Wednesdays are my check-in days with my coach. So yesterday, so you guys get like fresh updates on all that. We just upped my cardio, so I'm doing 6 days a week now, 45 minutes on top of training 5 days a week, 6 meals a day. My calories are plummeting. I'm a 6'1", naturally sitting above 200 pounds man who is eating sub 2,300 calories a day, which is crazy. Um, but it's good. We're confident. I've been hammering, posing. I've been working with a coach on, some forms, some dieting things, tweaking it. So November 5th is the big day. That's like my big push. And I don't know. It's tough. It's really tough. It's a very isolated like way of living. But I would say I gotta imagine it's a lot like law school. Like unless you're in it and unless you're doing it, it's hard to explain the experience to somebody else because it's so dramatically different than anything else you've ever done before.
Yeah, So I'm living with my brother and his fiance, and it's like they're like, "Oh, you're such a good student." It's like, no, it's not a matter of being a good student. It's a matter of if I don't read this, I will have zero idea of what's going on,
Yeah.
right? So, and I would imagine it's the same. Like if you don't eat that meal, if you don't, go do that rep in the gym, like you're going to be so far behind of where you have to be, and it's like the smallest misstep puts you behind.
Yeah, it's. I was talking to him today. It's crazy. When we're like 2 weeks out, we're gonna start messing with like my sodium intake, water levels. Like it comes down to micronutrients, and the way that he was explaining to me is like it's like the classic like pyramid scheme thing. It's a reverse funnel. He's like you start up here, and you have all this weight to lose and all these workouts and everything. He's like, and when it gets time for show day, when you're reaching that pinnacle, he's like, it boils down and you're under a microscope everything you do. It's going to come down to like hours of sleep. I got to track like how many steps I'm doing every day to make sure I don't do too much cardio or too little passive cardio, and it's a full-blown effort and in fitness, which is something that I think is, I don't know, super cool. And I know a lot of people our age are very very into fitness, and I don't know, I'm happy to be doing it.
Yeah, I'd say it's a pretty big trend with our generation. A lot of people are getting into it a lot more than I think in past generations did. So if you want to see some progress, if you want to see people, working out, check out Steven's Instagram. He always
It's
puts up
true.
his gym pics. So if you
It's
want to see
true.
how he's doing, go check that out. And
Nothing recent though. I got to keep the people guessing. I can't let them know what I look like.
can't let him know too much. Can't let him know too much. And maybe if you give me a follow on Instagram, you could see me posting things about how stressed I am. But no, I'm not really that stressed. I'm not a very much the kind of guy that gets overworked and overstressed, but I could see it coming down the pike. I wouldn't be surprised. But
A
anyway,
stressed AJ. Never heard of it.
yeah, no, it's not like myself. You're talking about a guy who has a resting heart rate of like 55, so
Yeah.
I'm a pretty chill
Potentially
dude.
low. Potentially too low.
I might be dead now. So anyway,
This is the
let's.
ghost of AJ Malolo joining us this week on Bridging the Gap.
That's right. Let's get into some stories, Steve. What do you say?
Let's do it.
So I think this will roll right in, coming from our conversation, which is the Biden administration's decision to forgive student loan debt. So, as I'm sure we are aware of at this point, because it broke about a week ago, that $10,000 per borrower who makes under $125,000 individually, and that's 200, and then if you're married, under $250,000 as a family, are eligible for the $10,000 loan forgiveness. If you borrowed Pell Grants when you applied to school, it's $20,000, right? So they also decided to pause repayments again until January of 2023. And basically, the executive order that was signed is the most expensive executive order in the history of our country, totaling around $300 billion of forgiveness and spending, right? There are debates as to whether or not this is constitutional. I mean, Nancy Pelosi herself and Joe Biden, just not that long ago, both said that the president doesn't have the power to forgive. I think the direct quote from Nancy Pelosi is, he can postpone, he can delay, but he cannot forgive. Most people don't know that. That's pretty much what she said, and that's the inflection she used. And then, of course, he forgave it, and she was like, what a great move, a superhero. Yeah, because he's doing things that are out of any other human being's power, including any other person who ever was president, right? So I guess it is superhuman. It's super presidential. But not, and that's not in a positive way. But so they're claiming that this is going to help the lowest on the income bracket. But according to the Wharton School of Business and Brookings, that's not necessarily the case, right? According to this, the 42% of the people benefiting from this are going to earn more than $82,000 a year. The wealthiest 20% of households own a third of all student debt, and 8% of student debt is owned by the bottom 20%. So I really, really don't see how this is helping the bottom of the income barrel more than it's helping the top of the income barrel, because the numbers just don't bear it out. Most of the debt is owned by doctors and lawyers, and doctors and lawyers make money. So
Well,
it doesn't really make sense to me.
and let me ask you a question. If there's a population, hypothetically, that the Democratic Party might be losing, might you say that it is secondary college educated, high income individuals?
I would say that that is the population that swings the election, predominantly women in that category that you just mentioned.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So I would say that it's politically, right? If we're talking political strategy alone, a great move by the President of the United States, especially with
Genius.
the midterms coming up. If anything, people say he didn't go far enough on this move. Now, that being said, not only do I not think that it is a wise move economically, but I've been thinking about this a lot, Steve. Like, literally, was rolling around in bed last night thinking about this, and thinking about why, to my core, I think this is such a bad move. And I'm going to get a little bit like deep and philosophical about this, and I want to hear what your opinions on the reason that I think to my core I'm so shook by this.
Sure.
And that is the fact that our society, or not even just our society, but civilization as a whole, is built on a bedrock trust of other individuals. It's the trust of duties that you owe to each other. The debts that you take out are the debts that you pay. And if there's no trust in that system, there's no trust that I will pay back this debt to you, right? Then civilization absolutely will crumble, because it's not just monetary debt, it's all sorts of debt. It's duties that we own and are bound to each other by. That's what creates a civilization, right? So if we turn around and say, guess what, guys, we know that you willingly, knowingly took on this debt, and now you don't have to pay that back, somebody else will pay that back. Well, I think that hurts the very core of the human relationship, like human being to other human beings, very, very deeply. And you're telling these young people that your debts don't matter. The decisions that you make do not matter, because your responsibility to the other people in society don't matter. You don't have that responsibility anymore. Because don't worry, we'll do it for you. It's a very parenty, coddly thing. Like, your responsibilities, your debts aren't important anymore. That responsibility is gone. And do I think that the system of college and crediting is necessarily the best? No, but there was a willing exchange of, I am going to take on this debt now and I will pay it back later. And when somebody else steps in and says you don't have to do that, it breaches the duties that individuals have to each other and to society as a whole. And I think that it's shaken me, because it is to get rid of this type of debt is a shaking of the very foundation of not just a capitalist society, but I think any society at all. If a civilization is going to function, people have to be trusting that their debts will be paid and paid back.
Man. So I'm writing down my little notes here.
Sure.
I think the term that I would use is accountability. Right? It's a huge accountability issue. To your point, I understand when you say that, the bedrock of our society, of social interaction in general, is this common trust in each other. So from like a purely philosophical standpoint, I don't necessarily disagree. But to play the semantics game, I think that it's an interesting position, and I'm interested to hear. Obviously, we could discuss about this. This is two parties, right? So it's essentially a loaner and a loanee, and they're like, hey, I need however much, $70,000 to go to school, whatever. You sign name on the dotted line, you get your money, and they're like, hey, by the way, we're going to charge you probably predatory amounts of interest once you graduate, right? So the point that I'm trying to make here is, it's a huge issue. There's accountability and all these things, right? But I think the root of this particular problem comes down to the way that these loans are structured, the way that they function, and how predatory they actually are based on interest rates. You have people who are going to school who their school really should have only cost, let's say, at most, $75,000, right? And over the lifetime of their payments until that debt's paid off, they're paying almost 300 grand, right? Like that is equally, I would argue, as unfair as, abandoning that commitment to pay those loans. And I would not blame a single person if a government comes along, an administration comes along, that says, you know what, this is going to be an easy way to win votes. Let's just tell these people they don't have to pay it, right? I don't think you're a fool for
Oh,
taking advantage.
I don't think the individual is the fool.
No, no,
I
no,
want to
no.
make that clear.
Yeah, yeah, no, no. But what I'm saying is, like, I don't. I think that it would be foolish not to take advantage
Sure.
of that, whatever you want to call it, that privilege from the government. Um, but at the end of the day, like, this is an issue that lives and dies with the administration, because Joe Biden, like every other public official, can promise and promise and promise. And at the end of the day, he does not have to deliver on every promise he's ever made. And I think that it was poor decision making. And I think it's a reflection on him and his decisions and the administration's decisions. And to anybody who pays, a single iota of attention, tells you where their priorities lie. Their priorities are not in bolstering the economy, which is, in the midst of a recession, because we wouldn't be signing $300 billion executive actions if that's the case. Their priorities lie with the retention of power. And I guarantee you that the same goes for the next Republican in office. They are going to do whatever offers them the best shot at the retention of power. And this was the thing we talked about last week, which unfortunately you guys didn't get to hear because of our technical difficulties. But absolute power corrupts absolutely. So I agree with you. This has tremendous social fallout. There's going to be a lot of lessons that need to be taught to children who, are about to enter college, and they're watching the news and they're like, you know what, mom, I am going to go to the school that's, $15,000 more, because it'll probably just get wiped away. Like, you're setting up the next generation of students who are entering higher education for failure by telling them, hey, you know what, you can't pay it. It's fine. We'll take care of it. I understand that. Okay.
Yeah, I think, look, I would agree that it's silly not to take advantage of it if you can, right? It's just,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. They're going to do it. They set it, it's happening. And even if nobody chooses to do it, people are going to choose to do it. Take advantage of it while you can. I'm not going to blame you for not taking advantage of it, right? And I'm not saying that the system is healthy or strong or good
Yeah.
as it is. Like, this lending system, like you said, it is absolutely predatory. But the way you fix that predatory is not just saying, you know what, screw it, no debt for anybody. That makes no sense at all. And it undercuts the society opposed to helping the society. And I think that is my biggest problem with this is not the solution anybody is looking for. It is not what people think it is. It's not just, it was my money, or it was, whatever. It's just taxes. It's not just taxes. It's not always your money. It is something so much, I think, so much bigger than that. That these debts are, and it was the same problem in the 2008 thing, where the left was up in arms during the 2008, where we bailed out these businesses for doing the wrong thing because too big to fail, right? No. Part of society is having responsibility for making bad decisions. Okay? And it's a bad decision to be 200 to take out debt for and get degrees that aren't really that great and won't produce that much money. Like, it's one thing for doctors and lawyers to take out a lot of debt because there is a clear economic, literally gold pot at the end of the rainbow, right? Yeah. Quite clearly. Everybody knows it. Nobody's saying that that's not true. But, studying the humanities, unfortunately, doesn't have the same gold pot at the end of the rainbow. And I think that humanities are important. I studied political science and journalism in school. I took philosophy classes. I taught a philosophy course, right, for a little bit. Like, I get it. It's important.
Yeah.
But it's not worth getting $200,000 of debt over. And people have to understand that and be responsible for their actions. And when you take responsibility away from people, it creates a nanny state, and it creates perpetual children, and that is not good. And so I think that will get me off of my little soapbox for this topic. I think that that's the biggest problem, and we could talk all day about the economics, and you could turn on any other show to talk
Yeah.
about the economics. I just don't think the economics are the real problem here. Steven, I want to give you the last word, and then we can move on.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think that we both agree, like, the economics, clearly, we can have that discussion about why this is a poor decision, right? Like I said, we're barreling in a recession and we're signing the most expensive executive action package ever, right? There's excuse me, not congressional, the constitutional issue. Can he even do this, right? There's a lot of things to unpack. I think for me, the question, that I've had to grapple with and that I imagine a lot of our peers grapple with is like, I think it's a real ethical question. I think if you're even a little bit right minded, if you have your head on straight, you have to look at this and decide whether or not this is something you want to participate in, right? Like, I think the individuals who have to make these choices to file the applications and, seek this relief. So granted, some people there's a legitimate need. Some people are, actually crumbling and being crippled by their debt. But there's some people who, you know, if you wait 3 years, your debt's going to be paid off, right? Do you want to take the easy way out and take the handout and call it a day? Or do you want to stay true to your commitment and be accountable and reliable, right? Which is essentially the point that you're getting at. I think the fact that that option even exists, like you said, presents a whole host of problems. I'll be interested to see, and I wonder if the Biden administration is going to provide any data on this. I'd imagine that they have to, but that kind of covers how many people exactly received, the full 10,000, the full 20,000 if you took the Pell Grants, or and boil down and see, at the end of the day, it's unfortunate. This is going to be a hindsight is 2020 kind of issue, but see how many people were actually helped by this. See how many people actually sought legitimate relief, and see how many people took advantage of a political government handout.
And didn't turn around and use that $20,000 on some other nonsense debt. Like that's
Correct.
also important. And you just said something, and it'll be the last point that we make on this. I'm reminded of during the Great Depression and when Social Security and those types of things kicked in. There's the story of the boxer. I'm blanking on the name of the boxer, that he took his welfare checks from the government, and then when he made his prize money back, he paid that money back. And he didn't have to pay that money back, but he said, I don't want to take these handouts. And I'm not going to say like the old man, like that's when our country was great, right? Like, I'm not going to say that, because it's not a fair judgment. Like, people need this. Like you said, people are struggling with this, and I understand it. But there is no guilt at all with taking the money, because I think there should be. And I think that might be my biggest problem. Like, there should at least be a little bit of guilt that you're taking the money.
But you know what?
And
I think,
I'm not calling you bad. I'm not saying you're
yeah,
making a bad decision, but there's a contract, like not even a contract. There's an obligation to pay back your debt, and you're getting this handout. And to me, I think that there should be a little bit of guilt.
I think that those people would be the first to say, well, I'm going to pay for my taxes anyway. So,
Yeah, and I think that's ridiculous, because you and the other 300 million people in America are, right?
well,
So not really just you. So you got
exactly.
to bail out from all of your friends, that especially the half of the people that you'll be the first to demonize as the enemies of you and everything you stand for. They're also paying for this. So just so you're clear. So you should
And
go
so,
thank them. Go next time that person, who, I mean, we can all imagine who they are, sees a MAGA hat, walk up and say, "Hey, thanks for paying for my college." I'm sure
that
that'll
won't,
go over great.
yeah, that won't go poorly at all.
I'm kidding.
Um,
Don't do that. I don't want to cause that many. I don't want to cause fights.
yeah, I think, and this will really be the last point here. Uh, to what you're saying, you there has to be this understanding when we're dealing with issues on a nationwide scale, right? That it isn't just like you and your 10 friends from school that you graduated with, right? It's you, your 10 friends from school you graduated with, everybody else you graduated from school with that year, and also everybody else who was ever in school and the people who weren't in school. Like the real concept of like understanding that 300 million people is the collective we're talking about here that has
Well,
to pick up this
to
burden.
be fair, it's 180 million taxpayers. There's children in
Fair,
there, but still.
fair. 300 million American. All right.
Yeah.
180 million people who pay taxes who are all affected by this decision, and not all of them at the end of the day reap the same benefit as you, and that's
Most of
important to
them don't.
understand too. You know, so to take this money, to be in a position to take this money means that you were privileged enough to attend a school, finish it, you know. So there has to be this recognition of your place in the society, what you're asking, what you are taking, and who you are taking it from.
And
Once
groveling at the ground of those people. Sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. This is very...
And once you understand all of that and you have painted that picture, or somebody's painted for you very clearly, then make your decision. But understand also why that decision was presented to you in the first place. I don't think that Joe Biden really cares,
You don't,
about your
you don't
student
think?
debt. I don't think that Joe Biden cares that you're,
I don't think
being
Joe Biden
crippled.
knows your name. He doesn't care about you. He cares about your vote, and that's it.
Correct.
But that's every
Correct.
politician, to be clear.
To be fair. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. And this is something obviously that like people our age are going to have a lot of opinions about, and they're going to have a lot of decisions to make, and there's going to be a lot of discussion. And I it's so unfortunate that I'm not neither of us are still in undergraduate school, because I would love to hear like some banter in a classroom of like, juniors or seniors who are getting ready
Current
to leave.
undergrads. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like these people who have these loans who don't have to start paying them yet, and they're like, oh well, things are looking good when we get out of here, guys. I'd love to hear what that's like.
Right, and also it's looking good today, but someday you're gonna look back and you're like, oh, that was a mistake, right?
Yeah,
Just like the corporate boardrooms were probably like, things are looking great, guys, and honestly, for them, it worked out, but that's because that doesn't make it any good. Like it worked out for them, and it screwed everybody else over, and that's what you're doing in your classroom right now. What they did in their boardrooms,
yeah,
and think about how you feel about corporations, and imagine that people are gonna feel the same way about a college.
it's I don't know, man. This is a story that I think we're going to talk about quite literally for the rest of our political lives.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is
This
going to go
decision.
down
Yeah.
as a momentous moment in American history, at a tremendous time in American history, affecting a tremendous generation in American history. Like everything about this screams important to talk about, and we shouldn't stop.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Steve. So
But now we're gonna stop.
we're gonna stop talking about this now. Yeah, and we're gonna talk about the midterm elections of 2022, and Steve is gonna
Yes,
break it down for the people.
yes, we are. Ooh, need my water. Um, yeah, listen, guys. So, like we said, Joe Biden's trying real hard to rally the Democrats and win this midterm and retain control of the government. With the exception of the Supreme Court, stolen seats and whatnot.
Yeah, that's one way to call duly elected presidential appointments.
Yeah, whatever we're calling them. No, so there was a few interesting elections that happened. You guys may or may not remember Sarah Palin, Alaska. I can see Russia from my house. That
I can see Russia from
wonderful,
my backyard.
that wonderful crazy lady. Who played her on SNL?
I
Maya
do not
Rudolph.
remember.
Maya Rudolph killed her impression on SNL. Um, we're supposed to be Gen Z. I'm talking like a straight up
Like a
millennial.
exactly, not even Gen
Not
Xer
even
like our parents.
Yeah. Oh, did you see SNL? um,
See that Saturday Night Live from 10 years ago?
That's exactly what I just did. Wow. Okay. Dated myself, and I'm not even that old. Whew. All right. Anyway, Sarah Palin, they had a special election out in Alaska, and they only have one House seat, which is, I
It's
mean,
population, right? It's the biggest state
population based,
by
like
size,
area.
but smallest, not smallest, but smaller population.
Yeah. Um, but so this is an interesting statistic here, and this is from CNN. Alaska has voted Republican in every presidential election since
Since
Lyndon
LBJ.
LBJ, which was the 60s, right?
Yeah.
Elected a Democrat to fill an open House seat that the GOP has had for almost 50 years.
Yeah.
That is a staggering loss,
Yeah, it's
especially
crazy.
for a woman as established nationally as Sarah Palin. This woman was a vice presidential candidate. She was on every TV. Everybody knew her name. She's no stranger to politics. She's a powerhouse. And
But
she's
people in Alaska don't like her. Like I think
no.
that's the big thing here. Is this a referendum on Sarah Palin, or is it a referendum for the Democratic Party candidates, whatever you go? Like I don't know how to look at this Alaska race. Is it Sarah Palin is just not that great of a candidate, or is it something else?
Yeah, I mean, but this is the other thing. It seems to be that it looked like heading in earlier this year that the Democrats didn't really stand a chance in the midterms and that things were gonna, kind of fumble at our feet and Joe Biden, the most popular president in modern American history, was not going to be able to. I did lose air quotes. Uh, was not going to be able to retain this political power. And oh, okay, perfect. Uh, I don't know about that anymore because this is not the first shocking Democratic win that we've seen, and the Democrats that have been winning have been very strong candidates. Now, granted, we're talking primaries here, with the exception of this one. This was a special election. Um, but there's primaries where these Trump Democrats, or I'm sorry, hello, Trump Republicans, were slated to win by these large percentage points, and they're scraping by the
If
skin of their
that.
teeth. I was to say if they're even scraping by.
Right. So I think that's something that's so interesting, and the thing that's really just boggles my mind, because I have the Real Clear Politics thing up here, is if you look at it, like Joe Biden's job approval rating is still at plus 10 disapprove, plus 9 disapprove, right? Plus 45 that the country is going in the wrong direction, right? It's crazy. It is crazy that the Republicans are losing these seats, because every single metric that you could point to says Republicans should be running away, like sprinting
Yeah.
as fast as they possibly can away with this. History, all of the generic polls that other than the generic balloting, which still has Republicans ahead, like it makes no sense. So that brings me to Stephen asking you three questions, or
All right.
one question, but I'll give you three options.
Perfect.
Why is this going on? Is it because of Donald Trump being forcing himself into the center of a race that he's not on the ballot for? Is it because the Republicans are running just some uniquely bad candidates? Or is it, third, that Democrats are rejuvenated because of things like Dobbs and the decision for Biden, the decision that Biden just made for the student debt? Or is it some combination of the three? So I gave you four options. You're welcome.
So here's what I'll say. To me, no surprise that Republicans are putting up uniquely bad candidates. I haven't seen a good Republican candidate in years. Um,
I mean, I disagree, but
so if you want my honest assessment, I think that it is a twofold answer. I think that there are a lot of people who really seriously dislike Donald Trump, and I mean a dislike, like a, I would say like a fueled hatred for this man
yeah,
and the way that
visceral.
yeah, It comes from your gut. Like, it is just, he is appalling to look at the way that he left this office, the least peaceful transition of power that we've ever seen in this country, right? Like, nothing about him is graceful, is
Okay,
elegant, is
I want to
worthy of
stop you
being
really quick.
presidential.
We had a civil war after Abraham Lincoln took power. So
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's the least.
Okay. Let me rephrase that. The least peaceful transition of power in modern American history.
You're on a
Okay.
better track. Yeah.
We're moving. Okay. This man has had like scandal after scandal. Whether or not they prove to be to come to fruition is beside the point, right? Because we're dealing with a population of individuals. I'm gonna take a little soapbox moment here, right? This generation, we are like overstimulated. We are the internet babies. We have like the 2 second attention span. And so, you'll hear the story. You'll remember the headline of Donald Trump, saying, "Grab him by the whatever. I'll stand on Fifth Avenue and shoot a man." Mocking disabled reporters. January 6th, 2 impeachments. Right? Like, I could do this forever. And regardless of what the outcomes are, people our age aren't really invested in outcome. They want the headline. They want to give you the hot take. They want to have an opinion on it, and then they want to forget about it because the next thing is coming around, right? And I think that has a lasting impact on a candidate. And it's just unfortunate that Donald Trump is a bad candidate, and he's the first one that we're really going to learn that lesson from. So I think that his even involvement in this is a nightmare for Republicans because they should lose this guy. He is nothing but divisive. And I understand, when you're heading into a general election, you want to rally your troops, whether it be Republican or Democrat, for a primary for a general election. But when it's time to come in November of 2024, and it's like the real deal, the whole shtick is you start out here, and as the general election moves forward, you need to get here. You need to unify. You need to pull people from the other side because that's how you win these elections. And Donald Trump does not have that reachability. He is not a candidate that is going to reach across the aisle and grab Democrats whatsoever. Especially to second fold on that answer, I think that the Democratic base is so fired up. I don't think it has anything to do, though, with any particular initiatives from Joe Biden, with the exception of student loan forgiveness. I think that the portion of the population of Democrats are fired up, A, that Donald Trump is even involved in this race. He's even a talking point. And B, I think that the Roe decision is going to motivate a lot of people to get out and vote because the Supreme Court has been tumultuous and a topic of conversation, since Obama with Merrick Garland and, I'll say the stolen seat. So you have a lot of motivating factors that do not seem favorable for Republicans. And I would not be surprised if we get closer to November and it looks more and more bleak for the Republicans. They,
So
they got to figure out what to do with this man in the middle because he is nothing but trouble for them.
yeah, I would say, and I heard this in a couple of podcasts that I had listened to, and I think that it's the strongest message to a Republican candidate and just Republicans broadly to listen to if they want to win this midterm and take it in stride like they were supposed to do, right? Everything is pointing at Republicans winning and winning in big droves, except for the fact that they're just messing it all up. Like, it's crazy. It's like watching, it is like the Yankees, right? The Yankees had like a 20 game lead and now it's down to like 7 games and I'm pulling my hair out when I'm watching it at night. It's like I'm watching the Republicans at the same time do the same thing. But anyway, the message is, do not let your opponent make the narrative. And the Democrats have made the narrative around Dobbs and Trump, and that's it. That's the narrative. Everything you see, it's about Donald Trump, and Roe. Donald Trump, Donald Trump. Also, that Roe thing. Remember that. Like, but meanwhile, the Republicans have, look at the state of the economy. Look at the state of our education system. Look at the fact that New Jersey, New York, California are trying to remask people, right? Look at the fact that they lied to you about the vaccine, and now it's all coming out, and they tried to hide it all, right? They have so much to run on, so much to run on, and yet they get caught up in this. But Donald Trump isn't really, Donald Trump really isn't that bad of a guy because, he did a lot of good things for our country. And talking to Donald Trump for 5 minutes because he's not on the ballot. You are Mehmet Oz. You are, Blake Masters. You are Herschel Walker. He is not. Don't let him take over your campaign. Run on the issues. Run on the things people care about. What are people talking about around the dinner table? Make them talk about the things you want them to talk about around the dinner table. Because they are important. They matter. The economy matters, right? The state of our schools matter. Okay? These things are important. And you're letting the opponents drive the narrative. And that is the biggest problem. You can't win an election if you don't control the narrative. Period.
It's true. It's true. And I think the fault of the Republicans in this particular election is that you feel like, and granted, this is any politician though, when your opponent throws mud, you feel like you have to, shake it off, pick it up, and throw it back. And that's not the case. I think a great politician, again, I wish things turned out differently for him, but Chris Christie is a prime example of this. A guy who is not afraid to walk into a place with some mud on him already and take a little bit more mud and say, you know what, I may not be the cleanest guy you've ever seen, but this is an important issue. This is how I'm going to fix it. You have my word. Look at my track record. I don't care what they say. And
well, I think it's something Ron DeSantis in Florida is doing so effectively.
Yes.
And that's why things are going well for Republicans in the state of Florida. For the first time ever, they have more Republicans registered than Democrats. Why?
Yes.
Because it's exactly what you're saying. It's someone saying, hold on. But this is the issue that we're going to talk about.
Yes. And what's so interesting to me is Donald Trump had the chance to be that guy. He did.
Well, I think he was in 2016.
I think he was, but I think that he took it too personally, and he needed to be free and clear, and he needed to there has to be an answer for everything when it comes to him. Whatever is thrown at him, he has to answer, right?
Well, his name has to be seen on the news. Like, he has to have that happen.
Yes, but I mean, like so many, he does, and especially right now with the whole Truth Social thing, you're a private citizen. Until you announce your candidacy, I really don't give a damn what you have to say at all. Unless you are going to run and you're going to put your name up to try and win my vote, I don't care what you think about Joe Biden's decision on, whatever. You don't see Bill Clinton coming out and making comments. You don't see George Bush coming out and making comments about Joe Biden. You don't see Barack Obama coming out and making comments, because these are all people who have been there, they've done the job, and they've left, right? And they are like, I'm a
well, it's
private
different
citizen.
because he's clearly running again, right?
Until
he hasn't announced it, but he's clearly running again.
Until he says it, he should keep his mouth shut, and I think it would do his party tremendous favors. And
I don't necessarily disagree.
Somebody in his party needs to suck it up and sit down and tell him, you are blowing this for us.
Well,
you want to win again?
He literally blew the Georgia election in 2020 because the Senate election, because he said, you shouldn't even vote. It won't even matter. What?
Yep.
What? Like, that's why the Democrats have the Senate right now, because you said that.
Yes.
Just keep your mouth shut until November, and the Republicans will win walking away. I think we agree.
And I'll be honest with you, that even spoiled over into the general election. Georgia was one of the last states to come in the most recent election. Georgia, and I've been saying this for a while, is like the hotbed for politics at the moment. There is so much that happens, so many important decisions come out of that state. And again, for the president to say, you don't even need to vote, doesn't matter. Are you out of your mind? Mitch McConnell should have walked across the street to Pennsylvania Avenue, walked into the Oval Office, smacked him in the face, and said, "Get back on TV and take it back. You blew this for us.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
going to
he
lose
he
my
absolutely
job.
did.
You're going to lose your job. All of our friends are going to lose their jobs because you don't know how to keep your mouth shut
Yeah, for 5 minutes. For 5 minutes,
for
dude.
5 minutes."
And it's like, listen, Donald Trump, I don't have a visceral hatred for the guy. It's just like blatant politics. It's
I
like,
do.
listen, I'm not going to say the man is a bad politician. It was the first time he ever ran for president and he won. But just get like shut up for a little bit. You're not on the ticket. You're not in the White House. You don't have to be the center of attention right now. But Steve, we are running out of time, and I think that we should skip to the story about Murphy, and we will.
Yeah.
We were planning on talking about, just so you are aware, we were planning to talk a little bit about the issues with free speech and censorship on Facebook and Twitter. Maybe we can lead with that next week for you guys, because yeah, we're running out of time here because I have this space for limited time. So.
Yeah. So Governor Murphy in Jersey made this announcement 2 days ago. Nothing crazy, and I think it's going to be a pretty agreeable move from him. So there was this American Relief Plan fund that we had tapped some money from, and he was in Paramus and announced that he was going to take about $6.5 million of that money, and he's going to use it to create these digital blueprints of school buildings, public and private, for like first responders, EMS, firefighters, and they're going to give these renderings that are like new, updated, accurate, digital, interactive things to these law enforcement and first responders. And basically, they're just going to kind of be there in case of an emergency. And it's more of a investment in the potential of it. Let me rephrase that. It's more of an investment in the security of these schools, in the potential of a tragedy, or whatever it may be, an active shooter, a fire, a natural disaster happens, right? Like whatever it is, law enforcement now in the state of New Jersey is going to have the ability to, if a call comes through that there's, God forbid, an active shooter at one of these schools, say, hey, let's get the file up. We're going to try and figure out, where our best entry points are. It's going to have windows, exits, marked exits, unmarked exits, everything totally digital and interactive. So now that there will be no excuse for law enforcement to delay entering or engaging or fully participating in an emergency in a school, which is something that in the fallout of Uvalde we heard a lot about was, oh well, there was confusion where the shooter was, we didn't know what the rooms were, this and that. When you can pull up to a scene and you can have a tablet or a laptop and you can interact with it and you can move it around, you can say, listen, this door's here, this hallway connects, bam, bam, bam. It's like you're in the building. It's state of the art. Yep.
And you could do training obviously with it, which is even better. Like the community police can map that out somewhere and sort of be like, all right, if this is what's going on, this is the course of action with it. Same with if there's a fire or an emergency situation in general. I think it's a great idea, and every state should do it, quite frankly.
Yeah. And I think the other interesting thing, and the article, this is from the Asbury Park Press, only mentions this very briefly, but interesting, and we could talk, very briefly about it. But there was a state law that was passed on the 1st of August, so a month ago today, that requires schools to create what they're calling threat assessment teams that basically alert school administrators about any students in the building or registered in the schools that may pose a threat to either themselves, others, the security of the school. And I don't know, just prima facie.
There's a little bit of
seems...
privacy concerns there, obviously.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, it's a good idea.
In theory.
In theory, maybe you don't start by telling the state, you don't start by telling the government. Maybe the first thing in that plan is calling the parents and being like, hey, little Johnny said some weird things in school today. Is everything going on okay? Everything going on well at home, something like that. And then take it from there. I think that the school does have an obligation to the other students, though, and the
100%.
community in general. And I don't think it's a bad thing to say, hey, something's not right. Tell mom and dad first, or
Yeah.
grandma and grandpa, whomever, and then go from there. But I think the plans are good. You know, you wish that you lived in a world that you didn't need it, but we
Yep.
unfortunately don't live in that world. And so we live in the real world where you have to do things like this to keep people safe. So I don't think you'll hear much bashing from the conservative side of the aisle on towards Governor Murphy, and I don't think there should be any, because
Yeah.
this is what you talk about. Like, how do you prevent these tragedies from taking place? And it's just putting the proper steps into place.
I agree. You want to, prepare for the worst, but, hope for the best in these kind of
Right.
situations. With regard to the, school assessment task force thing, the issue that jumps out in my head, less about privacy, is more about profiling, right? Because you
Mm.
hear always like, oh, the quiet kid who sits in the back of the class, da, 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 da. People make jokes about that. Oh, he went in his backpack a little too quick. I got scared, and then everybody
And the kid, the
laughs.
hood up with his head on his desk. You know.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's fair, because that's what I see this being, is almost like a picking on contest. And the reality of the situation is, those just might be people who are not social individuals, and just because you're not
Yeah.
social doesn't mean that you're a threat, right?
No, I think
And
that's fair. But to be fair, if you're looking at the school shooters, most of them have verbally or through text messages said questionable things in the past, right?
yeah,
So it's like, I'm going to do this, or like, watch out for me to do this. So I
yeah,
think that if it's used in those cases as like a, hey, this is what Johnny said, maybe we should check that out and make sure
yep,
everything's okay. Even if it's a joke, because I mean, quite frankly, like, yes, everybody has made, a stupid joke in their life, but there's a point where it's like, you can't be making that joke, like jokes like
correct.
that anymore. You can't be
There's also a
making like
time
a,
and a place.
yeah, and you can't be making a, don't come to school on Monday joke. Like, that's not, it's
It's not
just
a
not
joke.
funny in our world, in our society. So,
I agree.
um it's a bit of a down note, but I think overall a good thing by Governor Murphy, and
Oh,
I
a great
think
thing.
that it's a good idea
A
for sure.
great thing.
With
We're
that
gonna.
though, what's up,
Oh,
Steve?
go ahead. I was gonna
No, I
say,
was gonna say, I was gonna wrap up.
we're investing in the security of our schools and our students, and
Right.
that is something that, like, if you can't support that, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't
Straight
know.
up.
I don't know what's going on with
Yeah,
your
you got to figure some
ideas, but
things out.
exactly. You go figure yourself out before you come talk about it. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, with that, we do have to wrap up. We hope everybody has a wonderful Labor Day weekend. Go out to your favorite spot on the Jersey Shore for Labor Day. I like the fact that we could do call to actions nowadays. So
Yeah.
go do things.
And I'll add to that, as somebody who for my entire life has lived on a shore community and worked at a shore business for a decade. This is the last chance for my community to make all the money we're going to make this year.
Right.
The well-being, the livelihood, the GDP of this area. This is basically the last weekend for it. So it is
And it's a
so
big
important.
GDP for Jersey too. Big
Yeah,
portion of
exactly.
Jersey's
It's,
GDP.
it's our biggest industry, tourism.
Yeah.
So, get
Tourism
out
and
and,
pork roll.
yeah, two of my favorite things. Get out, enjoy the sun, go support a local business down the shore, and just, it's your last chance to come down here, help us help you, kind of thing. We're gonna make memories together, except we're gonna leave with your money, and you're gonna leave with memories. So both
So it's a
equally as
great
valuable.
transaction. It's a great
Equally as
transaction.
valuable. The
But with
greatest
that,
trade deal in the history of trade deals.
I'd say so. So with that, everybody, enjoy your Labor Day weekend. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll catch you next week for Jersey First TV and Bridging the Gap. I'm AJ Malillo.
I am Stephen Rambolo.
Peace out, y'all.